Afternoon, welcome to the Exploring Energy series presented by Montana Renewable Energy Association. My name is McKenna Sellers and I'm the Executive Director for MREA. The Exploring Energy series is a monthly lunchtime presentation where we cover energy issues impacting Montana and beyond. We hold these on the first Wednesday of each month at 12 o'clock Mountain Time, 12 o'clock Montana time, to explore renewable energy technology, the latest trends in energy development, and connect with experts working on the future of our energy system. We have a number of different topics that we've covered over the 2 years or so that we've been hosting the Exploring Energy series. And if you'd like to learn more about those or visit our archive, which we have on our YouTube page with a host of different energy topics, you can do so at the website that I've just shared in our chat. And if you'd like to go directly to MREA's Exploring Energy YouTube page, I'll also put that here on our YouTube channel. Okay, a couple housekeeping items. Please keep yourself muted during the presentation. There will be opportunities for questions as we go. So we've got some flexibility with time here. We will end this presentation by the top of the hour, but you can submit your questions directly through the chat function at any time. And actually, sounds like Arne prefers to, if you've got a question, please do speak up or put that question in the chat and we'll address it as we're rolling. If for whatever reason we don't get to your question, send us an email, info@montanarenewables.org. We'll make sure to get you an answer or connect you with the right people. This session is being recorded and will be available for registrants later in the week. So just, get you back to the right slide here. Just a mere week and a half or so ago, MREA hosted our 13th annual Montana Clean Energy Fair. Wanted to thank all those who attended. It was an incredible event, and that's part of what MREA does as a nonprofit organization fostering the growth of renewable energy in the state of Montana. We do this through education, through advocacy, and through community engagement. The fair is just one key example of how we put that work into action. We hosted the Montana Clean Energy Fair in Billings for a second year, and we continue to bring the fair to places all across the state. So I would be remiss if I didn't give you all a pitch for membership. If you like what MREA is doing and if you believe in driving the clean energy economy forward in our state, we invite you to take the next step by becoming a member of MREA today. Our membership is incredibly diverse, from households to industry partners, utilities, and MREA is a space for anyone who wants to support a powerful clean energy workforce, well-informed policymakers, and an active public as we steward Montana to a cleaner, more affordable, and reliable distributed energy system. We're built on our member support, and we wouldn't be able to do things like the Exploring Energy series, our Homeowner 101 workshops, our Clean Energy Expos, or any of our other advocacy if it weren't for the work of our members and having a strong membership. So with that, I encourage you all to invest in MREA. If you support the work that we're doing, and if you like this, if you want us to keep doing the Exploring Energy series, I'll put the link to join in the chat, or you can follow that QR code. So today, our talk is with Arne Thompson of the St. Regis Solar Hydrogen Node. We're talking about the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub as a whole, the connectivity of hydrogen hubs across the nation, and how specifically the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub relates to work in Montana. I think this briefing is pretty timely. Actually, the St. Regis Hydrogen Node has an event coming up later in September, so this is a briefing on this pioneering initiative for renewable hydrogen production, infrastructure, and distribution for the transportation sector. So at this time, without further ado, I'll introduce you to our guest speaker, Arne Thompson. Arne is the COO of the St. Regis Solar Hydrogen Node. He has over 30 years of experience in commercial aviation with the likes of top Fortune 50 companies, including Boeing, Airbus, and Honeywell. With the acceleration of the drone sector, Arne and his company AB Aero Partners have produced drone components for Boeing, Amazon, and other significant players in the space, as well as provided drone-enabled transmission line inspections for Berkshire Hathaway from Reno, Nevada to Las Vegas. During Arne's career, he's generated multiple seven-figure contracts in aircraft interiors for crew rests, interior retrofits, structural components, and drone production. Arne has a bachelor's in aeronautical engineering from the University of Washington and a master's work at University of St. Thomas for international management. He's a licensed private pilot, a drone pilot, and USCG captain. Past projects Arne's been involved in have included training programs for Honeywell Aerospace Components, tooling programs for Boeing, and Electric Boat Company on Lake Union. And in June 2024 is when Arne stepped into the St. Regis solar hydrogen node space and applied for a $2 million Smart Highway grant in partnership with T-Mobile to create a hydrogen-powered cell network along the 33 miles from Lookout Pass to St. Regis, which is considered to be one of the most dangerous stretches of the highway in the US. So we're very excited to have Arne here to talk to us more about the St. Regis hydrogen node and its context for the broader scope of the hydrogen hubs. So with that, I will stop my screen share, and Arne, you have the floor.
Thanks, McKenna. Appreciate the introduction. Hello, everyone. I guess I do share my screen. Okay. We can start with the thank you, but I think we should start at the top here. Slideshow. Can everyone see that?
Looks great.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. It's a high-level overview of the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub and St. Regis's role in that. And so I'll be going through the explanation of the process, where we're at in the process, what we intend to do. So without further ado, I figured I'd baseline this, just do a primer on hydrogen. The hubs are all the $7 billion that the DOE gave out to the hubs is strictly for hydrogen production. So I thought I'd say, okay, so how does that work? So basically, to be green hydrogen, and there's all the colors of the rainbow for hydrogen. Green hydrogen needs to be supported by renewable energy. So that can be solar, wind, hydro, anything that doesn't pull fossil fuels out of the ground and has to work with carbon capture. So with green, you can take water straight away and feed it through an electrolyzer, which basically splits the oxygen and the hydrogen atoms out. And that requires electricity to crack the water. And then from there, the hydrogen and the oxygen can be stored. Oxygen has been distributed for well over 30 years. And then hydrogen has also mostly gray and blue hydrogen. But we're talking about green hydrogen here. So basically, all you do is add water to an electrolyzer. It splits the molecule. You have hydrogen gas, and then you can store it, use it however you want. Interesting factoid is that 1 kilogram of hydrogen gas is about the same energy as 1 gallon of gasoline. Presently, because there's limited supply, especially of green hydrogen, and we're just getting started with that, the cost is still an issue.
Good boy.
Hello? And so that's why we're being supported by the DOE for buy downs of the cost of the hydrogen to support over the next 10 years to increase the hydrogen production. So what do you do with hydrogen? Well, you basically reverse the process, and the process of combining hydrogen and oxygen to create a byproduct of water creates a current. And so fuel cell electric vehicles are quickly becoming a mainstay. And trucking, we see trucking and heavy duty trucking to be one of the first significant off-takers. So Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, which now Montana is considered part of Pacific Northwest Hydrogen, the Pacific Northwest. There's 7 different hubs around the country. That equates to about $7 billion in DOE funding. Each one of them received $1 billion. And within those hubs, there's different nodes, different projects, different kinds of projects. Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, the hydrogen will be used for heavy duty transportation, transit. Twin Transit is one of the nodes out of Chehalis, agriculture, creating fertilizer, and then also power generation, reversing that process to create an electric current. Heartland is just over the border from eastern Montana, and they're focusing on steel and glass production, power generation, and then again, heavy duty transportation. The Mach 5 is doing the same thing as what we're doing in the Pacific Northwest. The reason I bring up these 3 hubs is because at our upcoming event in September, these other 2 hubs will be speaking at our event. The plan is for us to collaborate and create, the overall plan is to create a hydrogen highway from Seattle to Chicago. And between the 3 hubs, we believe that we have the hydrogen, or will have the hydrogen to support such an endeavor. So a truck could go 300 miles and be able to fill up in less than 20 minutes. So it's comparable to filling up diesel rather than charging on an all electric. All electric for large trucking, long distance, just the charging times are too much. So Pacific Northwest, we received $1 billion in DOE funding. And there's presently 8 nodes. The first node, Fortescue Future Industries, has decided not to participate. And so there's good indication that the rest of the money that was designated for them, and the production will shift to the remaining 7 hubs. And St. Regis. So why St. Regis? It's a town of 400 people. As soon as I move there early next year, there'll be 402 people. It's significant because we are a Justice 40 community, disadvantaged community. A couple of years ago, the mill there on Clark Fork shut down. St. Regis lost 100 jobs. And so that and our tribal associations put us at the top of the list for contributing to and enabling support of Justice 40 communities.
Arne, before we get going too much further, if you go back to that St. Regis, there's a question from Melissa Smith, and I think she just lifted it up by question. Okay. Perhaps the question is here, what's meant by power generation, and isn't that required for all other pursuits? Melissa, if you'd like to unmute yourself and maybe share a little more context about your question, I'm not quite sure what you're getting at.
Sorry, it's not Melissa, it's David Saslov.
Okay.
Her husband. We share a Zoom account, my bad. Should have renamed myself. But 2 slides ago, you were talking about what each of the hubs are pursuing. And in some cases, it looks like you're listing power generation, but it seems like you'd need power generation to pursue all of these things, right? So I was just wondering, what does power generation mean relative to these other pursuits?
Good question. So if you're using renewable energy, wind and or solar, when the wind isn't blowing and the solar isn't working, you need to have some kind of backup power to, one, continue the electrolyzers. Electrolyzers don't like to go down. They like to be in use continuously, et cetera. So that, and for emergency, like backup power, we've seen strong demand from hospitals and schools and EMS support for when power goes down. You need to have a source of power that's off the grid. So you would store hydrogen to be able to run a fuel cell genset rather than a diesel genset. The Missoula Airport is high on our list as far as being an off-taker for such a thing. Does that answer your question?
It does. I just hadn't realized that you were making such an immediate impact on the general region's power needs. I thought you were taking specific off takers, right, from very niche areas like the ones that were listed in the slides. But now I understand better. You're talking about community power generation right alongside all the other power generation that's taking place in that region from all other sources.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Okay.
We got one more question here from
Okay.
Mark Judeman asking about, probably best to just even go a couple slides back to the hydrogen production slide, that second or third in the stack. What's the efficiency of hydrogen electrolysis and fuel cell electricity generation compared? We have a comparative technology question compared to battery storage. You'd mentioned the electric charging time not being as useful right now, especially for long-term heavy-duty transportation. So how does that all interplay?
Well, actually, battery energy storage systems will be part of our build-out. St. Regis, we have the ability to put in up to 10 megawatts of solar. St. Regis, because it's tucked up in the mountains a bit, doesn't get as much as, say, when you're out east in Montana. For example, you get 150 solid days of solar in St. Regis. In Missoula, you get 300. So, so when we don't have solar, we need to be able to have a battery energy storage system to be a backup. And so, but when you, so that's a long term, when it's not being used, that's a long-term storage solution. And there's lots of different ideas about that, whether it's lithium or it could be vanadium. But when it comes to trucks and the like, I mean, you can, and like just Teslas if you want. The charging time is a huge factor in their viability. Now the batteries are getting better, that's for sure. You hear about it every day. But the efficiency of, I guess the efficiency of electrolysis, it's about 60% right now, and that's totally dependent on the solar panel efficiency. Does that answer your question?
This is Mark. No, actually, I am curious about what the actual efficiency is. I don't think that it's anywhere near 100% of batteries. And then, of course, there are losses when you convert back from hydrogen into electricity as well. So I'm just curious what those numbers are.
Yeah, I don't have those right in front of me. I mean, you have loss of it, you have efficiency of the solar cells. Then you have the efficiency of fracking the water. And so if you figure that into the overall energy draw versus energy output, the number that comes to mind right now is in the order of about 60%, between 50 and 60%.
Yeah, I think those numbers sound about right, but I think they're exclusive of the solar. I don't think that.
Well, yeah, but in the overall equation, if you add in the solar, then it actually becomes less.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, no, it's an interesting thing. But I guess the compelling thing is that we're using an additive renewable energy that's essentially free energy, and so in terms of, water is unlimited, well, pretty much unlimited. We have 6,200 gallons a day that we're able to use in St. Regis. And at 10 megawatts, we can get full build and have the demand. That'll support that amount. But yeah, water becomes a factor, you know, in places where it's not as readily available. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we don't have much of a problem with that. So there's other places that don't.
Thanks, Arne. Yep, I think that's all the questions I see in the chat for now.
Okay. So if you look up here, this is 55 acres that at full build out will be a solar farm right on the Clark Fork. The mill is right across here. And the Exxon station is down here. So the initial build out for 1 megawatt will be on a storage facility and at the Twin Rivers Exxon station to achieve 1 megawatt of power. So this is the Exxon station there. We have 8 acres there that we'll be using for solar and for replacement of the electrolyzers. Electrolyzers come in many forms. They can be in a container, self-contained container, or a building. And the number is 8 megawatts of solar, and these are at full build out. So the uses, you know, we have grid power backup from the SMK dam up north. So we have hydro as a backup. But we believe that we won't be depending on that too much. And then so we create that the hydrogen, and it goes into storage or it's transported places all around Montana. It could be local bottle delivery, which would be like your genset running on hydrogen. But what we believe is the heavy trucking, logging, mining are going to be the first significant off-takers. 400 kilograms a day would support 5 fuel cell powered 18-wheelers that both PACCAR, which is Kenworth, or Nikola out of California, they require, for a 200-mile round trip, it requires 70 kilograms of hydrogen every day. So those will probably be our first significant options. Then there's other options like with the server dome up here, which is just a power sucker to support AI and other computing needs.
Hey, Arne.
Yeah.
Just so I don't have to type the question, is there a future path to the airplane in that middle row beyond the trucking, or is this fuel going to not ever really be suitable for off takers in the airline industry?
No, actually, the first part of that can be done immediately as soon as we have production up and going is airport infrastructure. As far as the aircraft themselves, the certification process, and I've been through this my whole career, is so arduous. I haven't included it because we're probably 10 years away. The stuff I'm talking about with heavy trucking, mining equipment, et cetera, that can happen as soon as we have a supply of hydrogen.
Which would be measured in months. Sorry, which would be measured in months, not years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Airplanes. There's been some of these eVTOL, like Archer. Archer just had a significant flight, all powered on hydrogen. It's liquid hydrogen, so that introduces one more step in the production of hydrogen. And the storage of liquid hydrogen is different than gaseous hydrogen. Most of these vehicles use the 700 bar, which is about 10,000 psi gaseous hydrogen. But liquid hydrogen is cryogenic, and that has its own problems. Not impossible, but storage and room on an aircraft is critical. So, who are we? St. Regis Solar Institute. Well, George Bailey started thinking about this 4 years ago, and Candy, our CFO, has worked with George for the last 25 years, academia and some other projects he's been in. And then I got involved when I submitted a bid to the Hydrogen Hub for a hydrogen-powered drone system for the Port of Seattle. I got selected, and then I realized that drones just sip hydrogen, and you can put a drone up in the air for 13 hours on hydrogen. And so I would just be sipping it. So I was just an off taker, and I was introduced to George, and the rest is history. So we've been working on this solid for the last 19 months together, and we have a great team. There's 7 board members, but George, Candy, and I are the primary worker bees, if you will. And but so we're supported by a board and a good group of folks. So as I said, here's the Two Rivers Exxon station, 400 kilograms a day initial build, and we'll have a refueling station there for trucks. Once we have a network along I-90 all the way to Chicago, we imagine that there will probably be a hydrogen refueling station for trucking probably every 300 miles, which is well within their range. And I said, mining, trucking, charging stations, having backup charging stations run by a hydrogen fuel cell to be off the grid or behind the grid is becoming quite a good demand. And then Justice 40, we believe we're going to have a significant impact on livable wages for folks that would not otherwise have that opportunity. Whatever we do in St. Regis is going to be a kind of a template for doing this in other Justice 40 communities around the region. We're working with the tribes, some of the local municipalities to start those talks. And then again, job creation. Initial build, our build out will probably create 30 jobs in St. Regis. Once it's up and running on autopilot, the additional construction, but managing it is probably around 10 jobs long term. It's not close to the 100 that were lost, but at least it's a start. But there's other things that could be involved: mechanics, training folks on hydrogen fuel cells, and anything else that hydrogen touches is an opportunity for a job.
Arne?
Go ahead.
Just since we're, invariably going to get pushback on, what waste is generated from this process, can you talk a little bit about the effluents and the potential recycling of parts and things that go into this process in the multi-stages?
Effluents.
Well, I mean, is the water reconstituted as pure H2O the same way it went in, or is it wastewater that has to be injected into some deep water well somewhere?
No, it's not. There's no wastewater.
Okay.
The water comes out. It has to go in. It has to be filtered and treated to be 99.9% pure. That's otherwise you'll clog up the membranes in the electrolyzer.
So it's more a problem on the intake side than anything on the output side.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And what about recyclability of parts? I mean, what's the lifetime rating on the parts that are doing the electrolysis and the bottles in which the the hydrogen gets shipped around and all that kind of stuff?
Well, the bottles, there'll be tube trailers, and those will be carbon fiber. Um, the membranes, an electrolyzer is good for 20 years.
Okay.
So yeah, you can resell, but I'm sure, and the electrolysis process is making strides every day on different kinds of membranes to crack the water. So, but I think everything is being done in, with the end game of everything should be recyclable.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So here's the funding profile. 2024, we're in the engineering process, permitting, environmental. We received our funding at the end of the quarter 2023. We believe that we'll be able to speed on deliverables, equipment installation, and the beginning of operations. I have it there. That's pretty conservative. The Pacific Northwest Hydrogen, and there's different phases. So phase 1 is 2024 to part of 2025. Our initial tranche of money that comes from the DOE is $27.5 million. That's about what all the hubs are getting just to go through the engineering part of it. St. Regis has received over $5 million, and we expect that to grow as our footprint expands. And then we have matching funding lined up with different folks. And I think I saw Adam Gill on there. He's well aware of the activity around what we're doing there. And so, yeah, that's kind of the overview. And here's just some more on the community benefits plan. And I think we're going to make a huge difference in just the community of St. Regis, and there's several others that, as I said, can be duplicated across the region.
And what is Arne, what's the delivery to the household look like? Do I have to request a co-op or Northwestern Energy to procure my energy from your hubs, or can I do business directly and power my refrigerator on this energy?
Well, initially, no. Initially, everything we do is behind the grid. And we're in talks with Northwest Energy as far as feeding back into the grid from our solar farm. So we have a two-way meter, but that's not really been established in Montana. There's lots of states that have done that. Arizona is one of them. Where you put up a solar farm and you can actually have negative, get paid for providing your energy to the grid. That has not happened in Montana yet.
Well, I have a reverse meter on my house with my solar panels.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Oh, I do. Yeah. Northwestern will come and install them the day you ask for solar panels.
Well, that's news I haven't heard. I appreciate you sharing that. I did not know that.
There is a process they have to go through, and there is a small backlog depending on how many people are asking for these reverse meters at any given time. But and I'm not like generating enough power to sell anything back to anyone, so it never goes below zero. But I'm seeing 75 to 80% reduction in my power bill, as far as I can estimate, compared with if I didn't have the solar panels in the height of summer.
David, where are you located?
Great Falls, Montana, north central Montana.
North central. So you don't have a.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, Arne, I mean, there's lots of people, Montanans chiming in the chat here, but yes, most of Montana does have net metering interconnection. What David is referencing is a residential system. So we've got net metering for 50 kWh systems and below. A few of the rural electric cooperatives have a smaller capacity limit. So it just depends on who the utility provider is, but we do have that as a policy. Now, I think if we're talking about a 10 megawatt, your interconnection is going to look a little different. And there's also some question of like how much should be behind the meter and non-exporting versus a portion of that being an exporting opportunity. So anyway, I imagine there would be a few more dynamics to a 10 megawatt project as far as interconnectivity goes. But perhaps that's the information you got that's a little distinct from the distributed residential and commercial.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I joined this webinar because I didn't know that.
Hey, we're all learning something, huh?
We were talking, we've been talking about, yeah, large scale, 5 to 10 megawatts. And I'm not sure that's mature enough to be able to, have a purchase power agreement with Northwestern. Could be wrong. Somebody has a hand raised, Neil?
Thanks for taking the time here, Arnie. Yeah, these are definitely the people to be talking to when you have a question about net metering and tying into the system. So McKenna can answer all the questions about what's going on in Montana. I did want to ask, though, in trying to keep track through the news and my periodic conversations with George about how connected or contingent, I'm not sure what the right word is the St. Regis portion of the Pacific Northwest hub to what's happening over in Washington State, trying to check online news periodically for any updates. The last thing that I saw was that for the renewable hydrogen side over in Washington State, there was a news article about how credits may not be available or something like that. I couldn't quite track it. So it sounds like there might be a hiccup over there, but how, if at all, does that affect the St. Regis portion of the hub project?
Well, I think what you're referring to is production tax credit, 45B,
Yeah.
the $3 a
that's it.
kilogram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is, it's basically in the IRS's hand at this point. This is supposed to be a cash production tax credit. And a lot of these projects, depending on how that goes, it should not affect St. Regis Solar. There's some other grants out there for supporting off-takers. Originally, the infrastructure grant was $8 billion. They held out $1 billion to support and enable off-takers. And we will probably tap into some of that at some point. But yeah, the 45V production tax credit, $3 a kilogram, if that doesn't happen, it will make or break some of these. But we've run our numbers, and yes, it would be nice to have. It's absolutely not a requirement. I have a feeling it's going to be sensitive to whatever happens. So we're told that, it's kind of up in the air right now, because we've all been wanting to know. All of the nodes in Pacific Northwest, and I'm sure the other hubs want to get this settled so we can count on it and tweak our business model.
I thought, McKenna, since we're having some questions in the chat about the vehicles themselves, that I would flag that the Legislative Transportation Interim Committee is scheduled to have a presentation at 2:00 in about an hour and a half from Toyota about hydrogen vehicles and the overview, obviously from a Toyota perspective, but they do talk about not only light duty passenger, but also I think long haul freight, so similar to the Nikola platforms that Arne flagged earlier. So I just dropped in the chat the link to the live stream for the Transportation Interim Committee. Again, that'll happen at 2:00-ish.
That's in Helena. Is that going to be?
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's at the Capitol.
It's
Yeah.
but they also do virtual streaming, so that's a good flag. Thank you, Neil. And so you can see in the chat there, Neil put the live stream in the chat. You wouldn't be able to comment, unfortunately, unless you're going to show up in person or if you have registered to comment as of 5 p.m. yesterday. Those are the rules of the interim committees that meet in between on state off legislative years. In Montana, the legislative session happens on odd numbered years, so we'll start up again in January 2025. But that is a helpful flag for sure if you all want to.
Yeah, no, thank you. That'd be very interesting because I'm sure you're aware of the Toyota Mirai. PACCAR is using 2 of those fuel cell systems from the Toyota Mirai to power an 80,000-pound truck at 70 kilograms for every 200 miles. It's very impressive. So I'd love to join that. Thank you.
We've also got a raised hand from Jesse.
Hi, Jesse, thanks for I'm with Yeltsin Teton Clean Cities. Thanks for the talk. I think I bumped into you a couple of years ago here at MSU, hydrogen discussion. I'm curious if one of the goals is to sell power back to Northwestern Energy, what is the best case scenario cost for a kilowatt hour electrical production from hydrogen that you have generated? You have a ballpark idea for that?
Yeah, it keeps bouncing around. Don't hold me to this, but I'm thinking it's like, I may be totally off base here. I'm not too familiar. I think 7 cents a kilowatt. Does that sound in the ballpark?
I mean, that sounds awesome. If there's that much, maybe it is, I don't know. But it just seems if that is the goal to sell it back to Northwestern, it would just be much more efficient and effective to just put it in a battery and sell it back to them when they want it.
Yeah, for peaking power,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. But I have a feeling we're not going to have a lot left over to sell in the beginning. We're going to be using it all for production hydrogen.
Oh, yeah. One more thing I'll mention. I did run into some portable EV chargers that are up in Alaska and the Yukon, and some of them are running on hydrogen fuel cells. So they're essentially microgrids and EV chargers coupled with a fuel cell as an off-grid option. And that's probably
Is that a Generac system?
I can't remember what brand it was. I don't think it was Generac, but there are a couple that I saw a couple weeks ago in Tacoma that are doing that, and so that's definitely a value add to the hydrogen production.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's coming. We're on the leading edge here. It's kind of like the Wright brothers days, but it's definitely coming.
Well, it looks like you're a little further along than Kitty Hawk, if I may. But I'm going to ask a question which may get me into some trouble. But at what point in your timeline do you get the sense that we can tell the nuclear industry to go home? We don't need their power anymore because we've basically supplanted it with hydrogen.
Well, yeah, there's a couple different camps on that. It's called pink hydrogen, actually, because the nukes can power an electrolyzer. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very controversial question. I think, isn't Bill Gates isn't he doing something in Wyoming?
Yeah, we have somebody from MEIC here who's an expert in this topic. In fact, he just came to talk to us here in Great Falls about how interconnection with other power grids along the lines of what it looks like your hubs are doing is kind of the answer, much more so than setting up small scale nuclear in these various regions where no one will ever survive a meltdown or a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. We have some strong advocates, but they're not going to get credit. And I don't think any of them have been funded through the DOE that I'm aware of.
I'm sorry, none of the what have been funded?
I don't think any of the nuclear stuff for producing hydrogen has been funded by the DOE.
Oh, the pink hydrogen project.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Arne, I think you
No.
only have a couple more
Are we
slides.
coming up?
Well, I want to make sure we get through your slides and then we'll pivot to the remainder of the questions.
Okay. Hold up that chat. Okay, I'm done actually. So, and here's a pitch. September 25th. McKenna's gonna send everybody the link if she hasn't already. In Missoula, we will have a truck. We will have a hydrogen-powered truck there. We'll have folks from the 2 other hydrogen hubs there. Chris Green, who's head of our Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub, will be speaking. The governor, Team 40, he's on the list. I just got this from George to do an intro, either virtual or in person. And then some other interesting things. We'll have some booths there out of an expo that'll include the truck and some other things. So it should be very interesting. It's you want to you want to have a booth there, it's $500. You want to attend, it's $109. And we have blocker rooms at the Hilton Garden Inn there in Missoula. So that's my pitch. Any other questions?
So if this was a primer and you'd like to go deeper, September 25th in Missoula is the place
Yes.
to be, right?
Yeah.
Here's an easy question. Arne, you want to go back to which of the hydrogen hubs will be presenting in Missoula at the end of the month?
Oh, the two,
Yes.
Heartland and Mach 2. That includes Illinois and Michigan.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
then, of course, Chris Green from Pacific Northwest Hydrogen and George and myself will probably be chiming in.
Great. Let's see, consolidating some of the questions that we've seen here in the chat, and some of them have been answered through chat participants. So thank you all for the group think. Can you touch on safety, especially the safety differences, if there are any, between your standard diesel, heavy duty transportation truck and hydrogen fuel cell? Or I know other people in the public perception of safety is certainly a big and important one. So how are you all communicating about that, and what do you know on the safety front?
Yeah, that's the Hindenburg question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the good news about hydrogen is that it goes up. Propane, liquid natural gas, when it leaks, it goes down and pools. But you know, we've been hauling hydrogen around the country for well over 30 years. It's not green hydrogen; it's mostly blue and or gray. But so the aspect of hauling hydrogen and then creating a truck that drives on hydrogen, all of the tanks have to be DOT certified. So the risks between using propane and hydrogen, I believe, is about the same. And then the fueling stations, there'll be a standard. I just saw a note today from the DOE that they're going to standardize the fueling stations. I've seen a couple of these. There's a project in Wenatchee that has a hydrogen fueling station set up already. So, yeah, the Hindenburg, by the way, didn't blow up because of hydrogen. It blew up because of the dope that they used on the skin that caused the spark. Any other questions?
I think you've covered everything that I've seen in the chat. There's, yes, the question on which of the hubs will be presenting, the question on safety. Can you point to any other use cases that are happening right now in real time? I mean, you mentioned the Wenatchee station. Is there anything else in the Pacific Northwest that's happening now that folks could look at as far as applicability?
Yeah, Twin Transit out of Chehalis. I think they have now 3 hydrogen buses. Governor Inslee has ridden on one. So that's the one. They will be ahead of everybody else in the Pacific Northwest in terms of actually demonstrating hydrogen. They will have several Toyota Mirais tooling around Chehalis, just to get it out there and showing. But yes, Joe Clark, who's head of the Twin Transit, has 3, and he's got, I think, at least 2 more coming. And he's just starting to get them out. He's training all of his folks on the use of it, fulfilling, driving a hydrogen bus, which is really just an electric bus, but the fuel is a fuel cell. Electricity comes from a fuel cell.
Okay, question here, if you know this one, and I know this is about an adjacent or neighboring hydrogen hub. Do we know if the hydrogen hub's potential future about the Heartland hydrogen hub on the east of us and a little corner of eastern Montana would expand into future nodes in Montana?
I don't know. I believe what we're doing in St. Regis will expand, will go eastward. And we might meet in the middle at some point. Because we do need, there's talk about having a hydrogen clearinghouse. So a consortium so that everybody can, if somebody's making more or using less, then having a somewhat of a clearinghouse that could keep the cost down, make it more market driven. And we've been in discussions with all three of those, between the three of us. It holds a lot of promise.
Great. So for the last 8 minutes here, if anyone else has some final questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. There's one more. I'll paraphrase by saying, for someone who might be concerned that the hydrogen hubs are just about mostly natural gas and a small amount of renewable hydrogen, how would you respond to someone with that concern?
Natural gas, it's not, we're not even considering that. To use natural gas instead of hydrogen, or to use natural gas to make hydrogen? That would be my question. Back.
I'm going to take a stab and say perhaps the use of natural gas to create hydrogen.
So that's methane reforming, and you have to have a carbon capture part of that to make that. That would be blue hydrogen because you have a carbon capture component. So we're not considering that. Some of the others, I believe, out east, the Appalachian one might be, but I don't believe the DOE is funding any blue hydrogen. They've been very strict about that, and it's upset a lot of people because it is a source of hydrogen, and if they have the carbon capture covered, then why not? And so there's an argument made for that, but we're not, and none of the hubs that we've been associated with, partnering with, have been thinking about that.
No. So neither the St. Regis node nor the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub is considering methane reforming hydrogen production.
No.
All right. I see Tim has his hand raised. Tim, you want to speak up?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for having this this webinar. The question, Arne, and you had mentioned some of it, though. You mentioned about standardization and that the hydrogen stations would be standardized. I think that's a great idea and something that, man, since we're starting from the beginning, if things could be standardized, I think it would be key. And I guess so. My question goes even further. So would a truck using a station in Montana or where you're at be able to refuel in the other hubs that are, the Arches hub, if it could get that far? But, are the nozzles being used the same? Are the truck manufacturers talking to each other, having the same specifications for filling tanks, et cetera? Could you comment a little bit on standardization?
Yeah, I wish I could find the latest news article, but that is an effort. That's part of that additional $1 billion is the standardization of the fueling. That has to happen, and it's been happening with electric cars. I think everybody's gone to the Tesla model now, or will, because these charging stations, they if you just pull up to a Tesla charging station, I believe that it doesn't matter what kind of electric vehicle you have. You can maybe through adapters or whatever. But yes, there's active initiatives going on to standardize that.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
The question here about the recording. Yes, there will be a recording of this webinar available, and we'll also post it on the MREA Exploring Energy series YouTube channel. Other questions for Arne?
Slides available too, McKenna?
Yes.
We will do that as well.
Great.
Well, thanks everyone. I appreciate listening. I hope it was informative.
Very much so. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Again, a reminder that these happen on the first Wednesday of every month. October, we'll be talking virtual power plants and microgrids with the National Center for Environmental Legislators, NCEL. So if that piques your interest, we hope to see you October 2nd. Otherwise, thank you all for joining. Again, we encourage you to become a member of MREA if you like these Exploring Energy series, and we will see you next time. Thanks very much.
Thank you.